Hey guys, Titan Preparedness, welcome back to the channel. Today's video we are reviewing something that I've never reviewed before here on this channel, and that is prepping magazines. Now, these were sent to me by a man named Jim Cobb, and we'll talk about him in just a minute, but are these worth it? Are these worth the price? Should you look into subscribing to them? Is there enough information in here that they're worth your time? Or like some of the other magazines I've read in the past, is it nothing but ads? So before we get into the magazines themselves, let me explain why I have two brand new magazines sitting right in front of me and I'm reviewing said magazines. So in one of the Facebook prepping groups that I'm in, a man named Jim Cobb is in there, and Jim is the man when it comes to prepping, right? Whenever Jim posts something, you read it. Whenever Jim shares something, you go watch the video. Whenever Jim has an idea, people are engaged because Jim Cobb has been around the prepping block for a long time. You see, he's an author. He's written multiple books about prepping. He is a article writer as well. He's written for this magazine. He's written for other magazines as well. So Jim knows a thing or two about a thing or two when it comes to prepping. And now he's kind of gotten his own magazines. So Jim put out a PSA of sorts. Said, hey, listen, if you've got a blog, if you've got a YouTube channel, if you've got whatever, we ask that you promote our magazines. We'll send them to you for free for review. Just give us what you think, what you like, what you want to see in said magazines, and we're helping spread the word. Because the Prepping Survival Guide and this is the Backwoodsman Survival Guide, they're kind of new on the scene. So they're kind of trying to spread the word, gain attention, garner attention, get more subscribers. Makes sense. Now, how is the Prepper Survival Guide and the Backwoods Survival Guide any different than any other magazine you see? Well, I had to go to Jim's LinkedIn page to find out. Now, on his LinkedIn page, he does mention that he did write for many of these magazines in the past, and he took bits and pieces of what he enjoyed about said magazines and tried to put them into these two magazines. So, the American Survival Guide that we just put in the floor, he liked that it was non-politicized. He liked that it was more forward and straight to the point type thing without having to bring politics into it. And he wanted to take that, he wanted to take it from other magazines, Recoil Off-Grid, The Backwoodsman, Backwoods Home and Country, Self-Reliance Illustrated, Survival's Edge, right? He wanted to take all these magazines that are available and kind of merge the best of all of them and create the Prepper's Survival Guide. As far as the Backwoods Survival Guide, it is more about being frugal. It is more about living off the grid. It is more about outdoor pursuits rather than disaster planning and such. So this is more of your, let's go off the grid, let's start a homestead, while this one is more, hey, disaster's coming, let's be prepared, let's pick up this magazine and see some information and some articles on what they say. So, kind of intrigued to look into them. So this is the first time I looked at this magazine. I expect there to be some ads, I expect there to be some articles, and I'm going to just kind of skim through it and figure out what the articles are about and if they're worth their time. According to Jim, already, right, these articles are written by people that know what they're doing. Disaster planning, self-reliance skills, protect your family. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to plan for a disaster. Hell, just this weekend we have a hurricane coming in. It's kind of a disaster, right? Self-reliance skills. Everyone's trying to be a little bit more self-reliant nowadays. That's why I have farm animals. Protect your family. Alright, this sounds kind of like my magazine, right? We start off with the table of contents. Can you sustain diet-specific survival? Right, that's pretty interesting. Antibiotics. Cooking without power. No electricity, no problem. That's something that we on the prepping pages we talk about a lot of times, right? The number 2 problem. That's something we don't talk about, but we should. Learn how to build a lean-to shelter. 3 hawk reflector, 1 item with many uses, right? Multi-tool items, again, what we talk about in the prepping world. Severe weather, you don't need an ark. Hell on earth. And so from this table of contents, it looks like it's got about 18 articles in here. 18 articles for one magazine sounds to me like a pretty decent deal. So over here on the right side, we have a letter from the editor. You look at the very bottom, the editor-in-chief is Mr. Jim Cobb himself. We cover a range of topics, including dealing with dietary restrictions when it comes to food storage, how to use antibiotics. Right, so this is just a little article about what you can expect in this 19th issue of the Prepper Survival Guide. So we open it to page 9, Can You Sustain Adapting in a Changing World? We are facing massive drought in some areas, the reverse in others. Money doesn't go as far as it used to, and people are wrestling with the cost of heating, cooling, fuel, and food. Have a plan. What should be included in your plan? Your finances, water, food, and energy. So this little page and a half article is all about preparing for changing times. The author is Dana Beener. She's up in New Hampshire, and she says that, hey, right now, as I write this article, my area up in New Hampshire is facing a drought. So this is what I do. I collect water. I don't wash my car, and we cut down the length of our showers, right? All the same stuff that we talk about here, City Prepper talks about, the Urban Prepper talks about, right here in this article. The rising cost of food, even the basics. She has a garden, she hunts, she fishes, and she forages. Her system's not perfect, but it's a good step. That's what matters. So this is not a in-depth article about how to live as cheap and as humanely as possible and cut all your costs down to just a penny a day. It's a person living their life just saying, hey, this is what I do to stretch my dollar. This is what I do to have a little bit more energy, have a little bit more water in the tank and ready for a disaster. Dietary restrictions. This is interesting because we always tell people, oh, if you're on a diet or if you have dietary restrictions, you won't win after SHTF. If you're keto or if you're vegan or if whatever, SHTF happens, you're not vegan for long. This article is all about being on a diet or having dietary restrictions when it comes to SHTF, which is something we don't often talk about. So right here it says dietary trends. We need to know the difference between a diet trend and a true need to eat or avoid a certain type of food. So when we do tell somebody, hey, you might be gluten-free right now, but SHTF comes and you won't be. If they're allergic to gluten and it makes them feel absolutely crap or they puke it up, guess what? They're not going to eat it. And it's got a couple page article about special needs, the consequences. Like it says, if an individual is hungry, they will eat just about anything. But for medically advised dietary restrictions is not advisable. Again, you eat something you're not supposed to, it could be ending up in the world of hurt. You can't tell a person who's allergic to peanut butter, oh, you won't be allergic after SHTF. Don't give them peanut butter. So on to the next article is antibiotics, and for me personally, antibiotics is a topic that I have not discussed, but I would like to. Because if the trend keeps going, we could be in a world of hurt, right? Antibiotics have been used for the last 50 years or so to treat and prevent and help cure diseases. It's great. People have lived longer. It's fantastic. Problem is, diseases mutate, diseases change, diseases become drug resistant. And because most antibiotics are shotgun medicine, as we call it, oh, you're sick, here, have antibiotics. We don't know what's really wrong with you. We're just going to throw a bunch of antibiotics your way. Those diseases have become drug resistant to them. Antibiotics, if further pushed through shotgun medicine and not direct approach medicine, you could have diseases that used to be treated by antibiotics that are no longer treatable by antibiotics, which brings up a new pandemic, right? Interesting. So let's read this article. You'll need to know when antibiotics should not be used so that they don't get wasted. That is a big thing right now. Antibiotics, you can get them anytime you go into a pharmacy. Knowing when to use them, knowing when not to use them, and SHTF comes or the grid goes down, Lord forbid, knowing, hey, should I use an antibiotic on this? So the importance of antibiotics, the risk of using them, and then what to store. And it's got amoxicillin, penicillin, cephalosporin, a lot of medication, which is good, right? It tells you what to store. So right here, page 25, right, it talks about treatment for like what antibiotics do, when to give them. And it says, hey, you might want to give antibiotics at the first sign that there could be an infection, right? Maybe you get bit by a person, get bit by a dog. You want to give them as soon as you think, hey, this person could be infected by something. But it also says once treatment has begun, it will be tempted to stop giving or give a limited supply of medicine or stop giving as soon as you see an improvement, which is what a lot of people do, right? They get a 2-week antibiotic medicine. They take it for the first week and they say, Doc, I'm feeling better. Day 8, day 9 comes and they're right back in the crapper because they haven't let that antibiotic do its work for 2 weeks. They stopped it after a week because they were feeling better. Here it says you should complete the entire course of medication. Therapy duration could last from 1 day to several weeks. So this article was written by Mr. Joe Alton, MD. He is a physician and a medical preparedness advocate, and he has written the Survival Medicine Handbook. That's why I know this man. So cooking without power is the next article. I'm just going to kind of skim through it. Losing power can be unsettling. Yeah, right. If you lose power, a lot of people have electric stoves, electric items in their house. They lose power, they can't cook, they can't boil water. There's many ways to cook off the grid. It says cooking with fire, right? It's got rocket stoves. It talks about at least 15 feet away from a flammable object, build a ring, have large rocks or a metal rack. Turn the page, it's talking about alcohol stoves. It does talk about a solar oven. It says it isn't fast, but it does work well. It's got gel stoves, propane, butane stoves. It talks about boiling water, foods made with boiling water, as we know, Mountain House Meals, Wise Food. Over here it says, while canned foods can be eaten cold, hot food is just more palatable. Absolutely, right? Boost your morale a little bit. And this is a very quick article by Angie Hawks. She writes for a ton of different magazines. The next article is the number 2 problem, you know, when the S really hits the fan. Why not flush, right? It says your toilet uses a lot of water, and in situations like Hurricane Katrina or Tropical Storm Alice, you might not have that option. Talks about using a 5-gallon bucket topped with a toilet seat. You can also buy a waste bucket at any sporting goods store. What can you use? You can use a family cloth, a bidet, newspapers, or you can use leaves, right? You could compost. What to do with your bags of poop, right? You could compost it. Waste management is a problem you will want to address way before disaster hits, absolutely. Sean Ellis is the person who wrote this one. He's published 30 books. It's pretty impressive. So one article that I like already is Fooled by Your Bug Out Bag. Looking into it, it's talking about bug out bag selection, right? Being a prepping magazine, obviously they talk about bug out bags. Being a prepping channel, we talk about bug out bags. And for years we have said, hey, choose the right bag. And then take that bag and go on a trip. Does it fit right? Does it hold your gear right? Is it balanced? Is it imbalanced? How does it hold up? Did it bust open? Did it break 5 miles into your trip? And here we have the same article that I've said before, right? It says bag selection. Picking the right bag. Most people focus on the contents rather than the bag itself. Incorrect style or design. Having the wrong style of bag can lead you into a world of hurt. But it does mention in an urban setting, think simple, discreet, non-descriptive bags, right? But it also talks about armed marauders coming for your gear. Turn the page. Improperly balanced, uncomfortable and awkward, no room for extra gear. You don't know if your bag works unless you take your bag out. Overall, you got 18 different articles ranging from how to cook off grid to antibiotics. Then on the other side, you got bug out bags. Then you got, hey, clean your room up. And then you've got, you know, how to go number 2. So, pretty all across the board. It wasn't focused in on one thing and then all those articles being just repeat of the same old that we focused in on chapter number 1. Now, none of these were super in-depth, you know, a 45-minute class on how to build a bug-out bag or a 45-minute class on how to build a makeshift shelter. But with the pictures and then the articles, you can kind of put it together yourself. Cool. I like it. Moving on to the Backwoods Survival Guide. So again, this is more for living off the land, being frugal, versus prepping. Again, Mr. Jim Cobb has his little article. This is the 23rd edition of the Backwoods Survival Guide. Backwoods is every other month, so 6 times a year. So it talks about hydration, talks about eat against the heat, electrolytes, which are big that we don't talk about, staying cool, sunscreen and body care, apparel, what to do in an emergency. So I will say that on the Backwoodsman Survival Guide, these articles seem to be a little bit more in depth. You're getting this one about surviving bear attacks by Mr. Joe Alton, the doctor, is 4 pages long. In the Prepper Guide, it was a page and a half. So 4 pages versus a page and a half, a little bit more information. Underground eating. Nature has a way of providing food when you're in the wild without your own food supply. While people can spot berries, few will recognize food sources up under their feet, and what to do when you find them, right? How to prepare these foods, short and long-term storage of these wild edibles. Meteorologist, how to predict your own weather. Again, power goes out, grid goes out, whatever, you need to know what's coming. Talking about cloud formations, talking about barometric pressure. You asked me how to look at barometric pressure, I had no clue, right? Jim Cobb talks about it. Low barometric pressure means that bad weather is on the way. So if you do have a barometer, is that what they're called? Might be something useful, a useful tool for SHTF. If you can hear the crickets, they can give you reasonable, accurate measuring temperature. I remember this whole thing. So you count the number of chirps you hear in 14 seconds and then add that 40 to that number. So the crickets can tell you the weather. So these magazines are broken up. You get 3 or 4 articles a piece on the different chapters. So like for the Backwoods Survival Guide, your chapters is outdoor. You've got Beat the Heat, How to Survive Attacks, The Angling for Dinner, Underground Eating, and Being Your Own Meteorologist. Right, that is all about the outdoors. Homesteading, you got 4 articles on it. DIY projects, that's where the tearing through the woods, the muddy stains, and the when all other comms fail, the ham radio, right? And then the equipment. And the Prepper Survival Guide's the same way. You've got survival essentials, wilderness survival, severe weather, security and defense. So your articles are kind of in these sections. We're going to move on to should you subscribe to these. Start off with the Backwoods Survival Guide. Me personally, I will not. However, it's only because it is not what I'm doing right now. It is more about homesteading. It is more about self-sufficiency. It is more about being frugal, living off the grid, living off the land. Not what I'm trying to do right now. Right now, the article says it best. I'm planning for disasters, trying to be a little bit more self-reliant, but not all the way overboard, and protect my family. So this one, while it's good, it's just not up my alley. Now, if you are more of a homesteader, if you are more frugal, if you are more woods-based than I am, you might like it better. The articles were still good. I will give them credit. The articles were a quick topic, right? This is not a 45-minute long book on how to prevent a bear attack. It is supposed to be quick, 5-minute reads. You can sit on the throne, you can sit in an airport, you can sit wherever, pull the book out, learn a thing or two in 5 minutes, close it, move on to the next one. It's not supposed to sit down and be a 45-minute page about antibiotics or how to survive a bear attack or how to forage for wild food. It's just to get your mind started. And then when you have that information, you go, oh, that's how I find wild edibles. Okay, I need to learn more. I'll go follow this guy that wrote it, or I'll go learn about this guy that wrote it. Right? It's not supposed to be a how-to guide. It's just a little snippets of information, and all the information was good that I've read. Right? From both magazines, the information has been sound. All the articles were different, but they all fell into outdoors, right? Homesteading, they had 3 or 4 articles about homesteading. DIY projects, 3 articles about that. New equipment, right? 4 articles about that. So the articles are completely different, but they all fall into the category that they fall into. I will say I absolutely, Jim Cobb out here, listen man, I don't know how you're doing it, but one ad, and then one ad on the back, dude, that's awesome. I don't know, obviously, I don't know how you're making it, but that's awesome. Because some other magazines that I've read, every other page is buy this, buy that, buy this, buy that. And you would think I'm watching commercials on a TV. But I will say 2 ads for the whole magazine. It's pretty impressive. Now, the Prepper Survival Guide. More up my alley, right? This is a prepping channel. It is not an off-grid channel. It is not a homesteading channel, at least not yet. Every article is different, but every article fit into the category that they were trying to go for. This one is less frequent, as of right now, than the Backwoods Survival Guide. Backwoods Survival Guide is one every other month, so 6 a month or 6 a year. Prepper Survival Guide is 4 a year currently, right? Quarterly. So the Prepper Survival Guide, I'll probably be subscribing to it. I like the articles, and I like having them. And again, it's like a little Christmas gift once every quarter. You never know what it's going to be about. And they do have a Facebook group for both of these magazines. You get in there, you can talk more in depth with the discussions and the topics. If you guys want the link to it, I will post it down below. Just let me know. But again, what do you guys think, right? Would you spend your money on them? Do you prefer, books specifically on one topic, or do you prefer little magazines that kind of cover a wide variety of topics? Let me know down below. I think they're like 10, 12 bucks a pop. If you buy them at a store, you can subscribe to them and save a little bit of money. I will put the links down below on how to get to them. But anywhere that magazines are sold, you can probably find these. Walmart, CVS, any drugstore, you can find both of these. But that is the Prepper Survival Guide and the Backwoods Survival Guide. So again, Mr. Jim Cobb, I appreciate it very much. You did have a couple articles that were very well written in here. I'll check out some of your other stuff. Again, if you join the Facebook pages for the magazines or any Facebook prepping groups and you see Mr. Jim Cobb, you best listen to what he has to say, because he's a good man. Alright guys, so that's all I got for today. Y'all take care. T2 out.